The chair recognizes the lady from the District of Columbia, Ms. Norton, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the next 3 days, I will be coming to the floor leading up to Thursday, April 16th, Emancipation Day, D.C. Emancipation Day. Now, that's the day that Abraham Lincoln emancipated the slaves in the District of Columbia before slaves nationwide were emancipated. Now, no resident of the District of Columbia is a slave today, as in 1863. But at the same time, the residents of the District of Columbia are not as free as the other residents of our country, our fellow Americans. So, in the District of Columbia, we commemorate D.C. Emancipation Day, not only to honor our forebears, but to demand equal treatment from our country for the citizens who live in the nation's capital. Mr. Speaker, the citizens who live right here in the belly of freedom do not have the same rights as other Americans, although they pay the same taxes. I will argue tomorrow, show you the figures, more taxes than any other Americans. They endure undemocratic interference, even with their local budgets that are not even for which the federal government, for which the Congress contributes not 1 penny, and yet that local budget comes before this body without the member who represents the citizens whose local budget is at issue. That member cannot vote. Astounding as those elements of statehood are, perhaps none is more dishonorable than the continued sacrifices of Americans who live in the nation's capital without the same representation as other Americans. We are known, perhaps, in the nation's capital by no taxation without representation, but we ought to be known, and if there is anything by which we should be better known, it is those who have died, fought and died, since the war that created the United States of America itself. Who would believe what those figures show? In World War I, more casualties than 3 states. In World War II, more casualties. Now, this is one city of which we are speaking. More casualties than 4 states. By the time we get to the Korean War, more casualties than 8 states of the Union. And all of that is proportionate, Mr. Speaker. And finally, when we get to the last war of the last great war considered of the 20th century, the Vietnam War, more casualties from the district than from 10 states. Thousands have died, all without a vote. And yet they have secured the vote everywhere they went. They secured the vote for the people of Iraq. They secured the vote for the people of Afghanistan. They secured the vote for citizens throughout Europe and the Mideast. And here, to this day, 2015, almost 125 years after Lincoln freed the first slave in the District of Columbia, the residents of the District of Columbia are still not free. They will not be free until they become the 51st state of the United States, and until their war dead are honored in the way the war dead of other states are honored, by going to war on the vote of the people, including their own representative, coming back and being enabled to vote themselves. And so, Mr. Speaker, on this first day of D.C. Emancipation Week, I ask that D.C. War dead be honored, that those from the District of Columbia who serve our nation today be honored with the vote and with statehood. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The lady yields back. The chair recognizes